Hi, good evening, everyone. And again, we are here today to discuss on the subject of learning and teaching for Bachelor of Education program. And we are going to talk about uh, the learner's autonomy that we were discussing. And before that, we were discussing on ways to develop teacher autonomy, right? And in that, we discuss on few aspects like mapping the interest or mapping the aspirations that you have from yourself, the expectations that you have from yourself. And when you map your expectations from yourself, you'll be able to chalk down the path that you want to go ahead with. And where I give an example that I always wanted to work to develop the community or to do something for the community. And with that aspect, I started researching on what is it that I can do in the community. So I came out with preparing the pre-service teachers, right? So what to do in pre-service teachers? So I always thought that I can do something in terms of talking about the mindset and developing the mindset. And I came across thinking which can be improved in somebody so that mindset can change and behavior can change. And so I started working in the area of critical thinking, and I used that over a period of time to implement on student teachers, and that's why I could see many of the teachers getting benefited by using the critical thinking skills and developing critical thinking skills. And then we also talked about the second point where a teacher can develop autonomy is by way of using critical thinking skills, right? And that is important for decision making. Why is it important for decision making? As we discussed that, not everything that happens in the schools is how, because how you think about it. But say for example, when you first time go into a class, there will always be 5 7 teachers, or probably group of teachers, or probably a previous teacher who would tell you something about a student. For example, for a group of students, or some students, you can't take it as it is, right? Because the context may differ for you, the aspects may differ for you, the situation may differ for you as a teacher. You might be a different person, you might be able to influence the students, and the students may be different into your class and they may be different into the other teachers classes. It might so happen that many of the teachers might have had the same situation with those students in the class, but you might face a different situation. So we have to understand that what kind of how much perspectives should be we taking into consideration as a teacher. That's what we discussed. And from here, we'll be discussing more aspects today. Let me share my screen. And yes, very quickly, we'll go ahead with this because we have discussed on this part before as well, which is action research. And we have been discussing this as part of the characteristic of teacher autonomy, right? And if it is a characteristic of teacher autonomy, it can also help develop autonomy. That's what we said. So action research contributes to teachers' autonomous learning because somewhere you'll be able to understand the problems in your teaching process. Once you're able to understand the problems, you'll be able to improve them, by way of which you will become more independent. You will have lesser people talking to you about what kind of improvements do you need to do. And that's how you'll be able to develop autonomy. Yeah, you'll be able to self-rule. There will be lesser errors in your work. There is more improvement. You are an improved personality in all. And for that, it is important to do research. Research can be to improve the practices, research can be to find out solutions. Um, and that can help you, improvise in the way you work for your class, in the way you use pedagogy in your class, in the way you develop your content into the class. So action research, I think, is primary element for teacher autonomy, to develop teacher autonomy. And that is what is the third point of ways to develop autonomy. The first point was we talked about was map your goals. Second point, use your critical thinking skills. Third, make sure you do action research or use action research to develop. Fourth is self-observation. It is important to observe yourself. It is important to self-assess. It is important you become aware of how you teach, and it can be done through various aspects, right? So And when you do that, you also collaborate with people, because if I am teaching in a class, if I ask my peer to observe my class, give me her points on how I can improve myself or what are my strengths, the self observation is going to help. So it is self observation, but while you want to do self observation, you might also ask people to collaborate with you, so they might give you good feedback. So self observation is a very good tool, where you create opportunities of dialoguing with the peers, by dialoguing with the co-teachers. It might so happen that you might see something in you which is, which nobody is able to tell you, but you are able to identify. That identification may help you to discuss the problem with your co-teachers, and that's how you can improve and reconstruct. And the third point that we'll begin today is, what kind of learners do we have today? So I think many of the teachers or many of us are facing a lot of challenging learners in today's class. It is not so that they are not having enough information on their hand. They're coming there to listen to the teachers that they are putting up in the classes or something on those lines. We have students nowadays who are very challenging, who know many of the things. 90% of the things I feel students know in terms of the information. I think they might know better than us as teachers, because they are on the social media. They are on the Google majority of the times. They are with many of the people around, and they know more at times in terms of information. Where is it that the teacher can make a difference is the way the information gets processed in the mind of the students. Am I right? Because information is available. What is the point? What is the difference between I as a teacher and Google giving the information to the student? Both of us are imparting information, but then the major difference is, how do I process that information in my learner's mind? And that processing of information can make a lot of change in the students, right? That's where we are talking about developing the teachers, I mean the students, the learners. Am I right? And I think the emotional quotient that the teacher can share or the teacher can have is something that makes us apart from what artificial intelligence is doing, right? So the emotions that we carry, the sense of attachment that we carry to the students, the sense of processing of information that we carry to the students is what can make a difference. And I think it is important as teachers to see that we are there to create a learning society. I mean, over decades, it has been said that it is a noble profession. So why do we say it is a noble profession? In the sense that we want the learners in the space that we have in front of us to have learning societies. And what do we mean by learning society is what is being put up over here, a community that promotes culture of learning. Am I right? If I'm not able to promote that culture, I mean, how will it get transacted ahead and ahead? So we want to promote that culture of learning. So each one of us is self-assessing, each one of us is self-observing, each one of us is autonomous. So by that way, we are also trying to identify the gaps, and we are making sure that those gaps are filled up by a professional development, by doing the courses that are required. And in a way, all of us have a chain of effect where we are, a learning society, right? Um, how do we do that? By developing effective local partnerships. Am I right? It's not only self, but it is also important to collaborate. So I, as an individual, I can do a lot of things with myself, but I can create a lot of change if I have uh, partnerships with the local communities. Am I right? So that local context is also important. Between whom? Between all sectors of the community, and supports and motivates individuals and organizations to learn. So we want to offer rich opportunities for improved student learning. I mean, I might give a very good lecture in the class, but when my student goes to the community, to one of the institute, which is probably an institute for special children, what I teach and what my learners see in practice has its own importance, right? I might give a very good conceptual knowledge, but when they go to the field, to the place where this is actually practiced, it might create a very strong bond between the concept that I transact and the practice that they see. So that theory and practice is important for students' improved learning, improved academic achievement, right? And for that, my institution may have to collaborate with other institutions, because that's how we are saying that we are interdependent on each other. I might have very good things with me, but other institutions might have other good things. So we need to collaborate. Or probably as a teacher education program might have to collaborate with the school system. And that's how that collaboration is going to help to learn better. Because here is something that is very good in its conceptual understanding, very good in its genesis of making sure that many of the things are transacted over a period of time to the learners. But here is an institution which is actually practicing it. But amalgamating these two things is very important for students' learning. And that's where we are saying that we want to create learning societies. How do we do that? We can do that by even not only by self-observation, self-assessment, collaboration, but also on the other hand, is community partnerships. Is that what we are discussing? And that community partnerships may help conceptual knowledge collaborate with the practical understanding. And that's how the interdependency of two institutions is also important. The school system and the higher education may collaborate. Even the other higher education systems may collaborate with each other, creating, MOUs with institutions, research collaborations, grant opportunities. Even countries can collaborate for grant opportunities. And you have been seeing that many of the countries are now giving grants to the countries, to the researchers staying abroad in different countries. So that what are we actually looking at when we provide grant opportunities to people, researchers across the world, across the globe, is because we want to create those societies. We want good research to happen, and we want good researchers to get that funding so that they do good amount of research or good quality of research. Is we are saying that we want to collaborate. And that also promotes the concept of lifelong learning, because when I say self-assessment, it also creates opportunities for lifelong learning. I will always remain learner throughout my life. That is what we want to say. And so these are the 4 steps. If you see the following 4 steps, first is learning from the teacher. That's how, the teaching learning process can work. The first step being learning from the teacher. So I give conceptual understanding of something. Second is self-learning. So which includes probably something is given, and then you give a very strong, a very foundational question for them to research on, to work on, to think about on. And that's the process of second step. That is, you give a good question to think about. So once something is understood, you give a question which will have added knowledge to be researched on. And that's where the student starts researching, exploring what is the question all about. What I need to understand is what. Self-learning is the second step. That will also involve components of reflection. Am I right? Because once I start researching on things, and when I see that the answer is not sufficient, I might talk with a couple of experts. I might refer to a couple of online programs that are available, and I try to find out an answer, or I try to find out something for the question that is being asked. So that also talks about a lot of self-learning. Third is, once the first step is teacher giving it, second step is you pondering about it, the third step is when you have done these 2 processes, the third process in the class is discussion with the peers, discussion with people around you, so that you get those perspectives. I might have researched on something, my friend might have researched on something else, so I need to understand what he has researched on, and he has to understand what I have researched on, and what is my perspective, which is talking about collaboration, which is talking about building perspectives together. And the fourth step is utilization of the knowledge or what was learned. So all these 3, and then the fourth is, so finally, what is the learning that you carry out of that class, is what the 4 steps should be into any learning institutions, or to create a learning society. This must be the 4 steps. And the last 3 steps, so you observe those last 3 steps, you'll be able to see that it is more about the learner taking that ownership of learning. So discussing, researching, finding out, exploring, talking with experts, going ahead and sharing that, and then finally concluding it. So that's where we are talking about learner autonomy. So you might have understood certain aspects of learner autonomy, where we are trying to say that they should be self-observing, they should be self-learning, they should be self-ruling, They should be researching, they should be initiating questions, they must be initiating dialogues, they must be reflecting, and they must be, finally consolidating on things. And so, yeah, this is what I wanted to discuss in today's class. And so we have discussed on two aspects today, which is ways to develop teacher autonomy, where we discussed on, do action research, do self observations, map your goals, use critical thinking skills, and that's where you will be able to develop teacher autonomy. And the second one is, what kind of context do we want to build up for learner autonomy, is where the teachers want to build a learning society. And learning society can happen once you start observing yourself and once you start researching and all. But it is also important to collaborate and have partnerships with people, because you yourself are not self-sufficient. You will need resources of others, and others will need resources of you. So that collaboration is important. And then the 4 steps that are involved in learners' autonomy is what we discussed in today's class. And so I'll get back to you on the characteristics of learner autonomy in the next class. Thank you so much.